Ladies and gentlemen, life is not a rehearsal. It is the stage itself. You don't get a second version of this run. The question is not whether you're on a journey. You are. The real question is, are you crawling, walking, or flying? There comes a moment in every life when delay becomes disobedience, when hesitation becomes rebellion, and when comfort becomes a prison. Some of you are not stuck because of the devil. You're stuck because you stopped. I came to shake your stagnation, to confront the speed of your obedience, and to call you to divine acceleration. Let me tell you something that might shake your theology a bit. Acceleration is not always delayed by Satan. Sometimes it's delayed by association. You're not slow because you lack talent. You're not behind because you lack favor. You're delayed because you're carrying people, mindsets, and memories that were never assigned to your destiny. We love the idea of loyalty. We confuse it with bondage. We call it commitment, but it's often compromise in disguise. There's a difference between someone who walks with you and someone who weighs you down. You cannot soar with anchors tied to your soul. God told Abraham, leave your country, your people, and your father's household and go to the land I will show you. But Abraham brought Lot, and Lot wasn't on the instruction. God said, you. Abraham added, we. And as long as Lot was in the picture, there was no clarity, no inheritance, no advancement. It wasn't until they separated that God finally said, now lift up your eyes. In other words, you can't even see the next dimension until you cut ties with the distractions of this one. But I'm not just talking about people. No, some of you are dragging your past like it still has power over you. You keep reviewing what went wrong like you're editing a movie you never want to rewatch. And every time you think you're gaining speed, your history whispers shame into your spirit and steals your stride. There's a reason planes discard weight before takeoff. If a jet attempts to fly with unnecessary cargo, it crashes not because it can't fly, but because it won't let go. That's some of you. You're praying for God to lift you while you refuse to release the very things that are keeping you grounded. Some of you are in relationships that are comfortable but not covenantality. You're in circles that clap for your old self but grow silent when you stretch. And you've been confusing their presence with their purpose. Just because they were in your chapter doesn't mean they are in your conclusion. This is the moment where you must make a mature decision. Will you be loyal to familiarity or faithful to your future? David had to fight Goliath without Saul's armor. Why? Because you can't wear someone else's survival system in your own battle. He tried it on. It looked noble. It looked wise. It looked protective. But it didn't fit the future God had in mind. Listen closely. Some things will cover you, but still crush your calling. Some relationships will look like protection, but feel like suffocation. Some opportunities will pay well, but cost you your peace. When God is ready to accelerate your journey, He doesn't just give you speed. He commands separation, and the separation hurts because what you're detaching from is often what made you feel secure. But growth never happens in safety. The nest must break before the eagle discovers the sky. And let me speak directly to your spirit. If you're still trying to carry dead weight, you'll never find your wings. Today is a divine confrontation. What needs to go for you to grow? Who are you still holding on to that heaven already released? This is not about arrogance. This is about assignment. You can love people deeply and still leave them wisely. You were not designed to walk through fire and come out smelling like smoke, just to crawl through life with passengers who refuse to rise. Travel light. Release what God never gave. Let go of what your future can't carry. Because acceleration requires altitude, and altitude demands detachment. Let go. The sky is waiting. Let me tell you something that may offend your hustle mentality. Speed without clarity is not progress. It's chaos with momentum. And many of you are applauding your movement when God is questioning your direction. You're busy, you're active. But activity is not accuracy. Just because you're moving doesn't mean you're advancing. A car spinning in circles is burning fuel, but it's going nowhere. That's what happens when passion replaces precision. Passion is loud, emotional, and dramatic. It'll make you sprint towards something that looks urgent, but isn't essential. And here's the danger. The enemy doesn't need to stop you if he can just keep you distracted by the wrong assignment. You're fighting wars you were never called to win. You're building towers God never told you to design. And you're measuring your success by the number of tasks you've completed, when heaven measures it by obedience to the one thing you were supposed to do. Let me ask you something hard. Do you actually know what you're building? Or are you just trying to stay busy so you don't feel lost? In a world addicted to doing, clarity is the discipline of asking. Why? For whom? Until when? And until those questions are answered, your ambition is just a well-dressed version of confusion. Now hear me clearly. I'm not against ambition. I'm not against fire. But fire without form becomes destruction. Vision without clarity is like a painter flinging colors without ever sketching the image. And some of you are building lives that look like abstract art, impressive, but meaningless. We have bought into this lie that if it feels right, it must be right. But feelings are temporary. Clarity is eternal. Feelings will tell you to quit when it gets hard. Clarity will remind you why it matters. When Moses was called by God, he didn't just run off to do great things. He asked, "Who should I say sent me?" He wanted clarity because he understood something we've forgotten. You cannot represent an instruction you don't understand. Many of you are trying to execute a life assignment based on borrowed conviction and secondhand vision. You're trying to live out someone else's fire. That's why it keeps burning you. I'll never forget hearing about a young woman who opened a bakery because she felt led. But 3 years later, she was drowning in debt, bitter with God, and confused about why her passion didn't prosper. When she finally sought counsel and clarity, she discovered something painful. Her calling was not baking, it was building systems. She loved the idea of creating, but her true strength was in structure. She was gifted to organize chaos, not decorate cupcakes. When she stepped into clarity, her real acceleration began. That's some of you right now. You've confused your hobby with your high calling. You've invested your energy into what was meant to be a side note. You're frustrated not because you're not talented, but because you're talented in the wrong territory. Clarity requires courage. It's easier to keep doing what's familiar than to sit still and ask heaven for a precise blueprint. But silence births strategy. Rest reveals instruction. And clarity, real clarity, often comes in quiet correction, not loud celebration. If you want to accelerate your journey, stop running and start aligning. Don't just chase what's exciting. Pursue what's exact. Be still until you hear. Stay planted until you see. Because once clarity comes, speed becomes effortless. When the arrow is rightly aimed, release is no longer risky, it's inevitable. Stop shooting in the dark, get the target, fix your focus, let clarity lead, because once you see it, nothing can stop you. Let me speak to the rhythm of your life for a moment. Some of you are waiting for breakthrough, but you violated a law greater than desire, the law of momentum. You don't accelerate by shouting louder or believing harder. You accelerate by understanding the compound effect of movement. Movement builds power. Movement creates force. Movement gathers weight behind your direction, and that weight begins to crush resistance. But the tragedy is that too many people want God to move mountains while they're sitting still. Let's be honest. Most people don't lack revelation, they lack rhythm. You hear the word, you feel the fire, but your follow-through is erratic. You start with passion on Monday, get distracted on Wednesday, and by Friday you're back in the same cycle of stagnation, blaming God for a delay you created. The truth is simple but painful. Momentum is not God's job. It's yours. Hear this clearly. Momentum isn't sexy. It's not viral. It's not glamorous. It's the power of doing the right thing when no one is clapping, watching, or rewarding. It's waking up before the excuses. It's obeying the last instruction when no new word has come. It's building while it's boring, because you know consistency is the currency of acceleration. Have you ever watched a freight train start moving? It begins painfully slow, inch by inch, groaning with weight. But after a while, that same train is moving with so much force, it can blow through walls that once looked impossible. What changed? Not the train, the momentum. And that's you. You don't need new strength. You need consistent stride. But here's the deception. Many of you are addicted to dramatic change. You want the earthquake. You want the Red Sea. You want the fire from heaven. And you ignore the discipline of daily steps. The kind of steps that don't get applause, but build foundation. It's easier to cry at the altar than to commit in the hallway of ordinary life. And so you wait for fire, but God is waiting for follow-through. I knew a man once who kept saying, "One day I'll write the book." He said it for 10 years, had notebooks full of ideas, vision boards, outlines, even titles. But nothing ever moved. Why? Because inspiration without implementation is spiritual laziness in disguise. He didn't need another prophecy. He needed a schedule. He needed to put his hand to the thing daily, quietly, faithfully. And let me tell you something else. Momentum silences insecurity. The reason some of you are constantly doubting yourself is because you're too idle. When you move, you stop overthinking. When you move, doubt can't keep up. Motion creates confidence. Stillness creates fear. Even Jesus, after fasting for 40 days, didn't sit down and rest. Scripture says immediately he began his ministry. Why? Because momentum mattered. He moved with mission, with rhythm, with resolve. He didn't waste divine energy on delay, and neither should you. Some of you keep stopping because you're waiting to feel qualified. But momentum doesn't wait for perfect conditions. The ground shakes after you walk, not before. Heaven backs movement. Not noise, not plans, movement. So I came to declare this: pick up your pace. Build a rhythm hell can't interrupt. Set a motion that fear can't slow. Get up tomorrow and do it again, and the next day, and the day after that. Not because it feels powerful, but because you understand what's building in the unseen. Because momentum doesn't feel spiritual, but it breaks barriers. It doesn't look holy, but it crushes delay. Doesn't get headlines, but it gets heaven's attention. Build it. Maintain it. Guard it. Because when momentum takes over, nothing can stand in your way. Let me confront something that's silently stealing years from your life. You keep asking God to open doors you're not prepared to walk through. Acceleration is not just about speed, it's about structure. God will never give expansion to a person who can't handle weight. And some of you are frustrated, not because heaven said no, but because you haven't built the foundation to support the yes. It is dangerous to pray for elevation when your character is still under construction. It is reckless to cry for overflow when your integrity leaks. And it's deception, yes, deception, to expect God to bless what you refuse to manage. We don't like this part because preparation doesn't feel prophetic. It feels slow, it feels hidden, it feels like God forgot you. But let me say it with fire: God hides what he values. The more sacred the vessel, the more sacred the process. Diamonds are not made in daylight. They are forged under pressure, buried in darkness, surrounded by silence. So stop despising the preparation. He's not punishing you. He's protecting what he's building in you. You want the stage, but can you handle the solitude? You want the microphone, but do you have mastery over your mouth when no one's listening? You want followers, but are you following instruction? Because God doesn't accelerate the unprepared. He exposes them. I once met a woman who was gifted, sharp, magnetic. She could speak and shift a room, but her discipline was hollow. Her consistency was emotional. So every opportunity she touched turned to dust. Not because she wasn't talented, but because her gift ran ahead of her growth. Let that be a warning. What you gain by charisma, you can lose without character. When Joseph was given a dream, he didn't go straight to the throne. He went through pits, prisons, and betrayal. Not because God was cruel, but because rulership demands refinement. And when the moment came when Pharaoh called, Joseph didn't just interpret a dream, he managed a nation. Because preparation always precedes placement. Stop rushing what God is refining. Stop praying for opportunities when you're still mismanaging the little. If you can't govern your mornings, don't ask for meetings with kings. If you can't steward time, don't pray for a platform. Because God will only bless what reflects his order. So I dare you, build in secret, master the unseen, dominate the discipline no one claps for, and when the doors open, you won't have to fake strength. You'll be ready. Let me speak this loud enough for every sleeping dream to wake up. Your environment is either fertilizing your future or suffocating it. Acceleration doesn't happen in isolation. It is directly influenced, even determined by what you're connected to, what you listen to, and what you tolerate around you. You cannot rise while living in an atmosphere that keeps you grounded. Some of you are carrying divine vision, but surrounded by people with small appetites. You're trying to soar with minds anchored to survival, and you wonder why your faith feels weak. It's not your faith that's failing. It's your circle that's contaminating it. Listen, even Jesus had to remove certain voices before he performed certain miracles. Before he raised Jairus' daughter, he put doubters out of the room. Not because he needed an encouragement, but because atmosphere matters. Faith breathes best in the right climate. So let me ask you, what in your atmosphere needs to be put out? You can't keep feeding your soul on gossip, fear-driven conversations, and lazy thinking and expect destiny to bloom. That's like planting a seed and pouring poison over it every morning. You keep saying you're stuck, but the truth is you've just stayed too long in rooms that no longer match your revelation. Years ago, I met a man who had the mind of a general but lived like a prisoner. Every idea he had was massive, innovative, disruptive, but his closest friends were people who only talked about others. Every time he shared a vision, they mocked it or minimized it. Slowly, he began to shrink himself just to keep their approval. And one day, with tears in his eyes, he told me, "I buried my calling to stay liked." That's some of you. You've adjusted your brilliance to remain digestible. You've kept your movement slow so others won't feel left behind. But you're not helping them, you're hurting you. If the people around you don't challenge your stagnation, they are participating in your delay. Let that sink in. Even nature testifies. An eagle doesn't nest with pigeons. It flies higher because its environment demands it. Some of you need a higher nest, a new ecosystem, a different table. You need to sit with people who don't just entertain you, but ignite you. People who make you uncomfortable with your excuses. People who remind you that good enough is the enemy of greatness. Stop romanticizing environments that no longer serve your becoming. Growth will cost you comfort, but stagnation will cost you everything. Change the atmosphere or risk watching your destiny suffocate. Jesus Christ, let me declare something that will offend your comfort but ignite your calling. God is not obligated to accelerate what you refuse to take responsibility for. The highest form of maturity is ownership. Until you own your growth, your decisions, your patterns, you will keep circling the same mountain, praying for deliverance when what you need is discipline. Some of you are blaming devils that don't even know your name. You've turned poor stewardship into spiritual warfare. You say the enemy is attacking, but what if the real enemy is your refusal to take dominion over your decisions? Dominion is not a Sunday sermon, it is a daily decision. It's when you stop saying, "Why me?" and start declaring, "Watch me." Responsibility is the turning point between delay and destiny. There's no acceleration without accountability. God gave Adam the entire garden, perfection, provision, peace, and yet the first thing he held Adam to was responsibility. Tend it, guard it, manage it. Before there was warfare, before there was sin, there was stewardship. And some of you are crying over what you've mismanaged, not what you've lost. Don't tell me you want acceleration while you're still playing victim to your own choices. Don't tell me you want influence when you can't govern your attitude. Don't cry for impact if you can't be trusted with inconvenience. Hear me. This is the season where excuses expire. No more blaming the economy. No more pointing at your upbringing. No more talking about if they had helped me or if I had more support. At some point, you have to own the weight of your calling. Not just the glory, the grind. Not just the applause, the accountability. I once knew a young leader who kept jumping from mentor to mentor, church to church, job to job, always frustrated, always unfulfilled. One day I asked him a question. What if the common denominator in your delay isn't them? It's you. He broke. Not out of shame, but out of awakening. Because when he finally stopped outsourcing his responsibility, acceleration began. Ownership is a kingdom principle. Jesus said, to whom much is given, much is required. We love the given. We ignore the required. But God will never promote what he cannot trust. Until you take responsibility for your life, you're not waiting on God. He's waiting on you. So stand up, look in the mirror, and confront the only thing that's ever had the power to delay you. Your next level isn't locked in heaven, it's locked in your daily decisions. Take the keys, turn them, walk forward, own it. Let me leave you with this final charge. Acceleration is not a miracle you wait for. It is a decision you make daily, relentlessly, without apology. You don't stumble into momentum. You don't drift into discipline. You don't casually walk into destiny. You rise, you take command, you silence the noise. You move when it's hard. You build when it's silent. You obey when it doesn't make sense. And you keep going when others quit. You were never designed to crawl through life. You were built with divine architecture to soar, to lead, to influence, to create change. But heaven will not accelerate what you are afraid to start. And the world cannot benefit from the greatness you hide to keep others comfortable. So today, choose motion, choose mastery, choose boldness, choose faith that moves, not just believes. Don't let another year pass buried in potential. Don't die fool. Don't leave this earth with your brilliance still sealed inside of you. You were born for movement. You were called to advance. You were anointed for impact. So rise now, build now, move now, accelerate now. Good luck as you walk forward into everything you're designed to become. And thank you for having the courage to listen, the humility to reflect, and the fire to act. God bless you. Thank you.